the Indian Foreign Affairs Minister putting Justin Trudeau on the mat and saying, if you've got evidence, lay it out. Now, obviously, he's not expecting any evidence to come out, otherwise the Indian Foreign Affairs Minister in New York wouldn't be asking for that. But that puts the Canadian government under a lot of pressure. If you've leveled this charge, now walk the talk, show us your proof.
Trudeau is in a tough spot because he hasn't provided the evidence. India is denying any government involvement in this targeted killing. And at the same time, there are reports in the West, both on the Canadian side as well as from the United States, that a so-called Five Eye partner, major ally of Canada, presumably the United States, was involved in providing evidence which led Trudeau to allege that India was behind this attack. So, it's hard to know what the truth is here. In the event that India is behind it, the United States might be telling Canada, look, you're forbidden from providing the evidence, because it could be that the United States was spying on India, on diplomats in Canada, and won't allow Canada to share the information. There's a lot that we don't know, but what is clear is that Trudeau seems to be in an embarrassing situation because he's made this, this big claim. He hasn't provided any evidence either to India or to the public. So naturally, there are many people who doubt him. So we'll see. We'll see what he ends up doing with this.
Francesca, how do you think Europe and others are looking at the charges that Justin Trudeau has leveled, given that no evidence has been laid out to back the charges that have been made by the Canadian Prime Minister?
Sorry, I did not get, the connection is not that good. Can you repeat?
Francesca Marino, my question is about how countries in Europe are viewing, according to you, the charges leveled by the Canadian Prime Minister against alleged Indian assets, Indian agents who he says carried out this hit without providing anybody any proof. The investigative agencies haven't said it, his own police force hasn't said it, and yet he's gone out and leveled this charge. How do you think Europe is looking at it?
I mean, it's ridiculous. You don't accuse a friendly country, you don't accuse an ally if you don't have proofs. Well, without showing strong, solid evidences. And what's more funny, it looks like everybody has seen the evidences except the Indian government. I mean, tomorrow even my domestic help will come saying, I've seen the evidences. But another very strange thing is that nobody actually is talking of detailed proofs. It's just, credible links. It is most probably linked. I mean, this is not the way a country behaves. A Western, first world country behave. Of course, frankly, in Italy, there's not that much interest, strangely enough, because, as I said elsewhere, we have the biggest Sikh community after UK, and we had been having in the past, and even 2 days ago, episodes of violence. 2 years ago, the Indian embassy in Rome is being defaced. But even then, the reaction was quite mild in Italy because, and rightly so, the Sikh community is widely perceived as peaceful. But it is a couple of years that Khalistani elements is a constant, thin but constant stream of people coming into Italy, and I've been told by Italian sources, I've been told that they arrive not as, any random boat running away. They arrive in perfectly in style, carrying papers already compiled and signed by a lawyer asking for political asylum. I've been asked by people in charge of dealing.
Okay, Veena,
with
Sikri, we've seen that Justin Trudeau hasn't had much international support. Do you think he's played his cards wrong? He probably would have expected that the Western world would rally to his cause. Everyone basically turning around and now asking for evidence which he hasn't been able to lay out.
Yes, I agree with you, and I agree with the way in which our foreign minister placed this matter very, very succinctly on the floor of the UNGA, that there has to be credible evidence, credible allegations don't mean anything, and that they cannot be cherry picking. You cannot say that you can pick any country you like and pretend to have a case, where somebody is attacking the territorial integrity and of India. And also, it is well known that the Khalistani extremists are indulging in terrorism, in violence, and they are Canadian citizens, or as we just heard, maybe Italian and other citizens. So the Canadian government has a lot to answer for the links between these terrorists and their counterparts in other countries indulging in drug trafficking, human trafficking. I'm glad that the government of India is cutting this umbilical cord that may have existed between groups in Canada of Canadian nationality now and trying to incite events in India. We've seen that Gurpatwant Singh Panun has made a huge statement today saying he's going to stop the World Cricket Cup final in Ahmedabad and say it's going to be a World Terror Cup. He's an American citizen. He's a Canadian citizen, dual citizenship. These countries must answer why they are allowing their citizens to attack India with the threat of violence and extremism. So I think that Prime Minister Trudeau has not enjoyed by any means the support that he thought he would get. And within his own country, it has backfired spectacularly on him. His own parliament member, the leader of the opposition, the Premier of British Columbia, they're asking him questions. You are saying all this, but where is the evidence? You have not provided us any evidence. We do not know why you are making these allegations against a friendly country like India. And then you find that these extremists and violence, I think they should not even be called Khalistani, because in India, as Dr. Bedi has said very correctly, there is no interest in this. There is no support for it. There is only connection through terrorism and violence, whether it is Lawrence Bishnoi or other people who are in jail here. So I think that it is for Canada and America to answer why their citizens are attacking India with threats of violence and extremism. And I think that Prime Minister Trudeau has learned this, and he should now answer the questions that India is asking. Where is your evidence? Why are you allowing your own citizens to attack India, to attack the territorial integrity of India and the sovereignty of India? Why are you allowing these people who may have one time been of Indian origin, but now they are your citizens? Why are you allowing them to indulge in human trafficking?
Absolutely. And follow the same rules that you follow against truckers who are protesting against you, or those who don't want vaccines. Look at how the might of the Canadian state comes down on them, and here are people who are asking for arms to be raised, for diplomats to be killed, for Hindus to be chased away out of Canada, and that seems to be okay. I want to go across to my colleague Anisha Mathur. She joins us from Toronto. She's been there for the last several days. I hope she's not planning to immigrate to Canada and just stay over there and not come back. Anisha, good morning, welcome. We've been looking at your reportage very carefully.
Good morning.
How is Jaishankar's address at the UNGA and his subsequent interactions at smaller conferences being perceived in Canada? From what I can see, Justin Trudeau now under a lot of pressure to lay out the evidence and to prove that he has some material evidence to back the wild charges he made.
Well, Rahul, here in Canada, we're seeing a very strange situation where the ordinary person on the ground, the ordinary Indian origin citizen on the ground, is saying, well, we don't want to get into this debate. We don't support Khalistan. There are some gangster. There's some very small amount of people who are supporting this, but at the same time, they will not come out and oppose it because they are worried about the ramifications against them. So it is very clear that there is something that the Canadian government also needs to be careful about, because if the ordinary citizen is not ready to speak out in the open, but is in the drawing rooms, in their in public places, talking about how this is not a good thing, how this is creating a lot of tensions among the people. This is something that, as our guests have been talking about, the Canadian government needs to look at very, very carefully. We've seen instances of, in the last 2 years, if we look at the history that has been happening, this issue has come up on a this issue is getting traction in Canada over the last few years. More importantly, there have been attacks on journalists, there have been vandalism of temples. There is a question of why these people have the kind of, have been allowed to amass the kind of influence and money, and more importantly, even political backing that they do, because this ultimately is coming from a very, very small number of people, according to everyone I've spoken to here, that it is only about 5% of the Sikhs here who are talking about it. In fact, they're connecting it to gang violence, they're connecting it to to drug trade, they're connecting it to immigration fraud, they're connecting it to a lot of things, but what they're not doing is speaking out in the open. And Trudeau and the other MPs here, of course, they are being accused of vote bank politics here. That is this something that they're looking at? Because the ridings here, which is what they call the smaller constituencies, the ridings here have when the votes are counted, the the election results change by a factor of just a couple of thousand votes, and that is what the people here seem to be indicating, that because of that, because of the influence that these people hold in the local gurdwaras, in the local trade of the main cities, like in Brampton, in Surrey, in several other places, that is why they've amassed the kind of influence that they have, and that is something that is worrying the ordinary citizen of Canada. And Trudeau, of course, is being questioned repeatedly by the people as well as other. It is a very interesting phenomena. Rahul, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you well. Quickly wrap up.
Yeah. Sorry, just two sentences. If you see the parliamentary proceedings, even the MPs here are at one hand asking Trudeau for the actual evidence, but at the same time, they seem to be not wanting to rock the boat, as it seems, is with regard to their voters and their constituents. So it's a very strange situation we are seeing here, where they're at the
Now, this is an important point that you're making, and I want to go to Khalistani-gangster. Thanks, Anisha. I don't want to hold you for longer. We'll keep coming back to you for more. You can keep watching Anisha's reportage from Canada. But she makes a very important point, Surya, that there are many right-minded Sikhs who are very moderate, don't like the idea of radical Khalistan at all. And yet, for various reasons, in India and in Canada, don't want to speak out too openly for fear of retribution.
Absolutely, Rahul. And I think that this problem of the neo-Khalistani movement is actually you can call it a religion unto itself, which actually shields criminals, drug traffickers, human traffickers, people who are basically escaping sometimes India to Canada to ply their trade out there under the banner of Khalistan. And one of the issues that the diaspora has faced is the capture of gurdwaras by these narco-terror gangs. And
but how do you think we can take the gurdwaras back? Now, let's imagine that in few gurdwaras, whether they're in Brampton or Surrey, those are now controlled by very pro-Khalistan elements. Now, how do you take them back? Because the government can't really get involved in the matters of a religion, right?
Absolutely, and the first step to getting to returning these gurdwaras to the moderates and to the masses actually is forcing Canada's hand to crack down on these individuals, and that is exactly what I think the government of India is trying to do. And it is coming up against a lot of pressure from I would say, both the United States and Canada. If we listen into Dr. Jaishankar's talk at the Council for Foreign Relations yesterday, the language that was used even by Ambassador Kenneth Juster was kind of in line with what Secretary Blinken had said. He mentioned a Sikh leader, Sikh activist, and Blinken had mentioned transnational repression. Now, these are highly inflammatory terms, I think. And the reason that these terms are being used is because the West has, for decades, used Khalistanis as assets against India, to be able to activate them whenever they wish to curtail India's geopolitical maneuvering on the global stage. Because by setting fire to India internally, they can control certain geopolitical outcomes. Now, this is not something I think strategic partners should be doing to each other. And it's, I think, the basis of any sort of relationship to accept and respect the territorial integrity and sovereignty of your partner. And I think this is exactly what was mentioned in different ways, both in the discussion by the